The very mention of Diane Lane conjures up images of the everlasting Hollywood muse from films like Under the Tuscan Sun and Unfaithful. The glitz and glamour mask a life of unspeakable sorrow and tragedy. Her formative years were anything but mild, and few people realize that she suffered from a traumatic upbringing due to abuse. Diane, at 60 years old, stands before the camera with the wariness of a lady who has been through a great deal of pain, betrayal, and loss. The emotional and physical abuse she endured during her first marriage to Josh Brolin, one of two that ultimately ended in divorce, scarred her physically and spiritually. Have you ever wished you knew more about Diane Lane's background? With the suffering that the bright lights of Hollywood can't erase. Watch this video to learn about the side of Diane Lane that most people don't know. Diane Lane, like a small girl thrust onto the stage too soon in a fairy tale, had her Hollywood debut when she was just 6 years old. She spoke with the airiness of a breeze as she reminisced about her acting days, saying, "I don't remember choosing acting. Everything took me by surprise as my mom accompanied me to my audition." Rob Lowe proclaimed her the most stunning girl in the world when she was 13 years old, and she co-starred with Laurence Olivier in a short romantic film. Shadows were cast, though, by the stage lights. When I was in my robe, a producer once came to the set and made an inappropriate advance toward me, staring and even reaching out to touch me. Distant eyes were recalled by her. I had to put my eyes closed so I could pretend he wasn't looking. While she was a teenager, the tabloids were full of stories about her alleged relationships with Alio Estes, Timothy Hutton, and Christopher Atkins. Somberly, Diane grinned. Being a regular girl was all I ever wanted, but Hollywood wouldn't have it. During her teenage years, Diane also semi-jokingly mentioned an incident where she crossed state lines in a stolen car. When she met Christopher Lambert on a French film set when she was 23 years old, her life took a tragic turn. The City of Love and Light, 1984, also served as the setting for what Diane would later refer to as a dream without a script narrative. At the film premiere that day, she met Lambert. The first thing that came to mind was the way Diane, in a low, almost self-assured voice, described her appearance. I could only make out his figure amidst all the chatter and laughter. After Tarzan cautiously and curiously stared at her as if confronting a wave that he knew would carry him away, he became a rising star. Their second encounter in Manhattan took place 2 years later, as fate would have it. There was a raucous party going on. The lights were flickering, and Lambert stopped in his tracks upon spotting her. After informing a friend that he needed to speak with Diane, he proceeded to approach her directly. Softly, she inquired with a smile. He told her that she was still in his thoughts. They strolled under the New York City lights that night, and I'll never forget them chatting about movies, loneliness, and the fact that two actors could be themselves in a made-up universe. I didn't think it was a fateful night, Diane reflected from her memory. My life would never be the same, though, once he escorted me back to the hotel. Their love blossomed during everyday activities. Brief embraces in the air, letters written in Paris and sent to Los Angeles, and phone conversations made across multiple time zones. We subsisted on shards, Diane remarked. However, in every piece, there was reality. They were a tranquil haven in the superficial Hollywood universe. In the midst of all the attention, two individuals are striving to remain innocent. Eleanor was born to them in 1993, after they tied the knot in 1988. Speaking in an exclusive interview, Diane expressed her belief that it would endure indefinitely. Hollywood, though, is known for its short attention spans. Love, in all its exquisiteness, necessitates harmony. Diane belonged to the hectic pace of Hollywood, whereas Lambert liked the peace and quiet of France. I required movement, she recalled, while he required silence. As time went on, the gaps between us widened. They met halfway in an effort to save the relationship, but ultimately, they were unable to fully immerse themselves in each other's lives. Subsequent to 6 years, they finalized their divorce. Diane practically vanished from the screen after the split. According to her, that was the time when those years were absent. All I ever wanted was to be a mother so I could be a regular mom to my baby. My baby. As for Lambert, it seems that Diane was always on his mind. After then, Jiha and Sophie Morrow's romances fizzled out. When questioned about Diane in an interview, all he could do was smile. I've never felt so calm as I did when she was around. In contrast, Diane Lane stood out. Regarding that love, she seldom spoke. They loved each other a great deal, she whispered once. However, there are moments when love falls short, and it's nobody's fault. Unfaithful propelled Diane to stardom once again, following 2002's Time to Heal. Her portrayal of Connie Sumner, the tragically unfaithful wife, garnered her an Academy Award nomination. The script brought tears to my eyes. She reminisced not because of the part, but because I could relate to the struggle of being a captive in a marriage. Both audiences and critics found fault with the picture. They claimed I was endorsing infidelity. I was merely relating the narrative of a woman attempting to flee from her own thoughts. When Diane shook her head, she quivered in the face of close quarters. Adrian instructed me to tell everyone about what she said. Do what terrifies you the most. That's what my mom told me when I was a kid, and I remembered that when I was considering giving up, I thought of what she had said. Nonetheless, Diane encountered yet another mishap with this film. Not a scandal this time, but an actual harm. She had to endure months of treatment for the neck ache she had during her climactic scenes with Olivia Martinez. She joked, "I made my physical therapist rich." During an interview, the cost of achieving flawlessness in every shot, though, lay behind that smile. The press wondered if the producers were trying to force her into a passionate moment, an argument that sparked conversations around the limitations and safety of female performers in Hollywood. True catastrophe befell just 2 years afterwards. Diane Lane believed she had found serenity after being married to Christopher Lambert for nearly a decade and no longer desired love. But destiny struck again in 2002 at the A Beautiful Mind premiere, this time in the shape of Josh Brolin, a man with sad and wild eyes. Smiling sweetly, he approached her. "Will my name ring a bell?" Diane chuckled. "Sure thing, who might possibly have dined with my ex-husband and slipped my mind?" Tiny Spark was kindled by that comment, which was part serious and half humorous. Meeting slowly and discreetly, they started. Diane, who is 30 years old and has a wealth of expertise, is careful. Brolin, a man who inspired equal parts desire and dread in those who trusted him. As they sat on the porch one evening, she once stated that he had something hazardous, and evading danger was not my strong suit. Josh did it again on July 4, 2003, a full year later. Her laughter filled the air. "You have selected the 4th of July. Now you have a reason to celebrate, even if you end up regretting it later on, with a simple no, because you are my freedom." He sealed the deal. They were married on a ranch covering more than 100 acres in the summer of 2004 among the bright sunlight of northern Los Angeles. According to Diane, it had been a long time since I had been at ease. However, that calm did not persist. The cops showed up at their home on a cold winter night only 4 months after that. A heated fight had preceded Diane's call. The charges of domestic violence and spousal battery led to Josh's detention. Headlines that made top-page news spread like wildfire in the media. Nevertheless, Diane informed reporters with a worn-out grin that she was withdrawing the complaint the following morning. Misunderstandings occurred. We are all fallible. To shield her spouse from the media frenzy she wasn't prepared for, she opted to remain silent. Their appearances on the red carpet continued unabated as the years went by. Diane tenderly grasped his hand while Josh disguised his inner struggle behind a smile. Long, restless evenings lay underneath the glamour. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a different film. Not my role, not my life. The years of Josh's drinking and petty disputes left quiet scars that were bleeding. Even in 2010, Diane held out hope that they might pull through. She learned to control her emotions and remain calm throughout therapy sessions, which helped her deal with her angry spouse. The belief that she could rescue someone if her love was strong enough was something she reflected about afterwards. Regarding this matter, love is not a life preserver. That's only the wind. Both of them were worn out by Josh's slow descent into late-night drinking, ceaseless phone calls, and repeated apologies. By the end of 2012, Diane had been photographed exiting the Chateau Marmont Hotel by the paparazzi. With a yell, Josh pursued her. "Hold on, Diane," no turning around for her. That's when I realized what she meant when she stated we had hit rock bottom later on. They got a low-key divorce a few months down the road. "No one is being held responsible here," stated the spokeswoman. They were married for a long time, but when Diane saw a photo of Josh on the front page, his head hung low and his face flushed with perspiration, she knew their marriage had ended. Nothing malicious, just over. She whispered to friends before filing for a divorce, citing irreconcilable differences as the reason. Despite how carefree those remarks sounded, they were actually the culmination of a decade of simmering pieces. Their union remained intact till 2013. Word got around Hollywood that there was drinking and arguing late at night. Diane remarked, "I tried to save it, but that love can't always triumph against tragedy." She merely stated, "I need space to breathe," in reference to her divorce. In hindsight, Josh acknowledged that it was the most disorganized time in my life. Diane remained silent. Similar to her previous interactions with Christopher Lambert and herself, she opted for silence. It may have been 2005 when Diane Lane initially broke her own quiet, rather than the controversy surrounding Brolin that rocked Hollywood. She came clean in an interview about my extramarital affairs with Christopher Atkins and Timothy Hutton. The woman admitted that she was ashamed but had no regrets. Having to pretend to be someone else was finally a thing of the past. What the public heard was shocking. The actress, who was before a symbol of innocence, has now confessed to breaking limits. But Diane only grinned instead of offering an explanation. "My victim status is far from ideal. We are all human. Forgiveness is something we give ourselves," Diane Lane famously said, and now that the rumors have died down, she demands no one's pardon. As she reads, plants, and grins, she remembers the moments I've loved, lost, and survived while spending time with her kid. "Personally, I'm satisfied." Diane preferred to have a low-key life following her marriage to Brolin. She portrayed Hillary Clinton in House of Cards, Martha Kent in Man of Steel, Slim Keith in Food, and House of Cards. "I like strong women," she declared. "On the other hand, I identify with broken women because I have been broken." She lived out her part in 2024's rivalry Capot vs. The Swans by drawing on her experiences of maternal abandonment as a child. The greatest teacher is pain. "It teaches me how to love and how to let go." Jennifer Lopez confessed in 2025 that she regretted declining a part in Unfaithful. Diane merely grinned. Her film and television roles include Man of Steel's Martha Kent, House of Cards' Hillary Clinton, and Feud's Slim Keith. "I like strong women," she declared. "On the other hand, I identify with broken women because I have been broken." She brought her recollections of her mother's abandonment from her childhood to life in her 2024 role in Feud Caput versus the Swans. "The greatest teacher is pain. It teaches me how to love and how to let go." Jennifer Lopez confessed in 2025 that she regretted declining a part in Unfaithful. "I have no regrets," she stated with conviction. "I am pleased to share the stories behind each scar." Even under the shadows of Hollywood, Diane is not a little girl anymore. She is a strong woman who understands that tragedy does not spell doom, but rather the start of strength. Diane Lane had a tragic existence and an unhappy childhood on top of 2 unsuccessful marriages. New York is the site of Diane Lane's birth on January 22, 1965. Colleen Finkton, who was Miss October 1957 and a nightclub singer, was her mother. Burton Lane, who was also her father, was a cab driver and acting coach who worked with director John Cassavetes. A whole house was foreign to Diane. At the tender age of 13 days, her parents divorced. In order to formalize the divorce, her mother took the small girl to Mexico and left her with her father. After that, Diane and her father were nomads throughout their childhood, never settling into a routine anywhere. Diane had a restless childhood filled with tales of art and never a steady house or secure education. Diane learned to be quiet, to watch, and to adapt to change from her vulnerable childhood. As a teenager, she ran away from home with co-star Christopher Atkins, leaving her father behind, a daring choice for a little girl yearning for independence. When she got back, she rented an apartment and enrolled in a distance study program, convinced that she could finally be her own boss. The mother, who she believed had vanished from her life, however, was the true catalyst. Unannounced, Diane was whisked away to Georgia by her mother in 1981. At the age of 16, the girl felt a strong pull away from her father and New York. Similar to reclaiming an object, it was completely uninvited. When asked about her travel, Diane said, "I just remember crying throughout the flight." When 6 weeks, Diane was ultimately permitted to return when her father petitioned for custody. However, the link between mom and her daughter was severed. For 3 years, they didn't say a word to one another. While in Georgia, Diane resided in a modest home in the town of Bartow with her religious grandmother. She adapted to a slower pace of life, learned how to mend lawnmowers, started eating canned meat, and learned to sleep through the night with nothing except the sound of insects. Diane said that the tranquility may have been the key to my eventual success in the midst of Hollywood's cacophony. Diane bore the unseen wounds of years of abandonment, separation, and being ripped from her rightful place. As a result, she became someone who avoided the spotlight, was uncomfortable with discussing her personal life in public, and discreetly retreated when things became too heated. She had an early and harsh lesson to learn. If you don't take precautions, no one else will. Diane was just 13 years old when she made her film industry debut. In 1979, she co-starred with the late, great Laurence Olivier in a romantic comedy. People were taken aback, not by Olivier himself, but by the peculiar energy emanating from the small girl positioned beside him. Charming, self-assured, and with sparkling eyes. "The girl has something different," Olivier remarked with the air of someone whose whole life has been predestined to be on camera. Actually, Diane's lifelong ambition was never to star in a Hollywood film. Her single acting credit was in a short play, Runaways, which she performed at the Public Theater. Without holding an audition, director George Roy Hill persuaded her to star in the film when he heard her performance and felt an uncommon spark. On a more serious note, "He told me I needed to cry," Diane recounted. "As soon as I did, I knew I had entered a different dimension." There was a lot of strain on the crew when they traveled to Paris to film Diane. Laurence Olivier, whom she cherished and affectionately referred to as Larry, was constantly present in her life. "No one should address him as sir," he said. Had a meal and exchanged laughs with the entire group. During their conversation, he compared me to Grace Kelly, Diane recalled. "I owe him a big debt of gratitude for instilling in me the belief that goodness may have great results." After just one night of premiere, a little romance put Diane on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "Hollywood's Talented Kids." All of America called her a fresh breeze. But for Diane, everything happened too quickly. "I didn't realize that was the end of my childhood," she said. At 18, after films with Francis Ford Coppola, such as The Outsiders and The Cotton Club, Diane was a millionaire, but also a girl who early learned that freedom always has its price. Diane Lane was never the calculating type of star. Her success came from authenticity, a gentle, enduring light. But it was also that authenticity that made her fragile in a world where emotions are exaggerated and distorted. "I just act on my feelings," she once said. "But when you're a young girl and you cry, people always think you're overreacting." A simple statement, yet it reflects the harsh reality of Hollywood, where real emotions are seen as weakness among hundreds of memories on set. Diane remembers most the moment she hugged Laurence Olivier in A Little Romance. "When I hugged him, I truly felt the farewell," she recounted. "I cried not because of the scene, but out of gratitude." At 13, Diane understood that some tears cannot be acted. They can only be lived through, but light comes with darkness. When fame arrived too early, Diane faced the harsh side of growing up in public. The press paired her with every male co-star from Matt Dillon to Richard Gere. "I only played their love interest," she said, "but many people didn't understand." And so Diane became Hollywood's dream girl, a sweet yet hollow symbol admired, but not seen as a real person. The line between the real Diane and Diane on screen gradually blurred. She realized that if she did not step back, she would be swallowed whole. So she chose silence, refused safe roles, and stayed away from the press. Not out of coldness, but for survival. Good acting is not enough, she said. You also have to learn to protect yourself. Without a manager or a strategy behind her, Diane entered Hollywood like a child thrown into blinding light. She learned everything through collisions, how to answer cleverly, endure rumors, and stand firm amid the storm. And then one day, she realized she didn't just want to act. She wanted to live truthfully in every role. That opportunity came in 2002 when Diane was cast as Connie Sumner in Unfaithful. Connie is an unfaithful wife, not out of desire but loneliness. A woman unable to name the emptiness inside her, thus making mistakes just to feel alive. Diane understood that role was not just an opportunity, but a gamble. But this time, she was not afraid. After years of being forced into molds, she wanted to be real. The scene of Connie sitting on the train after her first affair became an immortal moment. No dialogue, no music, just Diane's trembling face between guilt and desire. That scene was not in the script. The director just said roll, and she let her emotions lead. One silent minute made the whole world hold its breath. Unfaithful earned Diane her first Oscar nomination. But for her, the real victory was when people saw a woman, not a figure, not an icon, but a person who knows how to love her and forgive herself. Diane Lane's career has never been a straight line. She does not cling to youth nor fear being forgotten. She simply chooses to grow with her roles. After Unfaithful, Under the Tuscan Sun arrived as a gentle response. A woman alone can still find peace, and as Diane herself once said, I don't need to be perfect to be loved. I must simply be authentic. Diane Lane was nominated for a Golden Globe and made almost $59 million in the United States for her performance as Frances in Under the Tuscan Sun. She valued the audience's identification with the story's female protagonists. Women who have loved, shattered, and been reborn more than any numerical value. According to Diane, I don't usually talk about happy things. Stories about people rediscover it are what I tell. She made her triumphant return in Twins in 10 with Secretariat playing the role of Penny Chenery, a courageous woman who defies gender norms to win the Triple Crown with a legendary horse. My role as the romantic interest has evolved a time, Diane chuckled. To lead is my role. Her unusual composure and resolve earned her critical acclaim, and the film was a smashing hit. Diane chose to be the reserved wife of screenwriter Dalton Trumbo in Trumbo 2015, taking a back seat. She silently expressed love with just her eyes and a tired smile, without the need of any elaborate lines. Diane was considered the film's unsung hero, and Trumbo was nominated for 2 Oscars. Her serene, seasoned beauty was on full display, even in her 2008 reunion with Richard Gere in Knights of Rodanthe. They were no longer a youthful couple in love. They were 2 broken hearts rediscovering the power of love. We're not acting, she said. We're just living in that moment. Over and over again, Diane widened the cinematic representation of women by adding Frances, Penny Cleo, and Martha Kent. Besides loving, they are also leaders and forgivers. Nothing is required of her in terms of proof. Just one look is all it takes to persuade. Diane became a mother and witnessed a failing marriage on camera in Cinema Verate's 2011. Her television debut, for which she received 3 major nominations, an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and a Screen Actors Guild Award. At the same time, she became a part of the DC universe, taking on the role of nurturing mother to Martha Kent's Superman. A simple embrace or kind remark was all that was needed to restore the hero's humanity. Let Him Go, released in 2020, showcased a Diane Lane who was more experienced and profound than before. Her performance as a grieving grandma seeking her missing granddaughter was a powerful demonstration of the power of stillness and observation that only those who have experienced loss can truly grasp. In retrospect, Diane has never been one to follow fads. Her parts are understated and powerful, yet she always chooses them. No need to raise my voice, someone will hear me. Her words were, I simply want them to sense it. Plus, Diane Lane has convinced viewers for nearly 40 years that the best acting happens when the audience forgets they are seeing an actor. Diane Lane has worked quietly for social causes outside of the film industry as well. Hiffer International is one of the long-term organizations she backs. They work to end poverty and promote sustainable community development. She keeps her accomplishments to herself and doesn't market herself by talking about them. Those who have had the pleasure of working alongside Diane attest that she goes about her work quietly, with honesty, and without seeking praise. Like her 40 years of life and labor, her quiet persistence has been noted in the news. Diane Lane does not possess a well-lit space where she can showcase her esteemed trophies, such as Oscars. She possesses an invaluable asset, the unwavering devotion of her followers, that neither fame nor fortune can purchase. Everyone feels more at ease and close to her when she smiles. Her silence has a way of evoking feelings that many have experienced before. Perhaps Diane Lane's life and dedication are already a legacy in and of itself, and there's no need for her to leave a traditional legacy. Diane has decided to live her life at a more leisurely pace now that the spotlight is off of her. Acting is her lifeblood, and she doesn't stop doing it even though she's no longer the focus of tabloids or tumultuous romantic relationships. When you're acting for Diane, it's more like second nature. Television has become Diane Lane's primary emphasis as of late, allowing her to go more deeply into her performances. In 2018, she made a strong impression as a calculating politician on House of Cards. She was nominated for an Emmy and received praise for her performance as Slim Keith in Ryan Murphy's feud K-Pot versus the Swans in 2024, while she was getting close to 60 years old. Martha Croker, portrayed by Diane, and Jeff Daniels in the 2025 Netflix original film A Man in Full Playing, is a strong, self-assured lady riven by internal strife. Anniversary 2025, John Comas's critically acclaimed criminal horror flick, will mark her big screen return in the near future. Despite this, she continues to make appearances at charity events such as the Champions for Change Skin Cancer fundraiser and the Cedar Sinai benefit for the Women's Guild. Diane Lane liked to keep to herself. No opulent mansions, no overbearing social media. Remaining in her old, nostalgic home, she opts for a low-key existence. Yoga in the mornings, weekends spent riding horses, strolls in the sunshine, peaceful afternoons spent reading, gardening, or recovering worn-out furniture. For her, maintaining mental and physical health daily is more important than any praise. She made this statement in an interview. Eleanor Jasmine Lambert, Diane's only daughter from her marriage to Christopher Lambert, continues to be her major priority. Eleanor, who was born in 1993, is currently working as a writer and model. She has been in Vanity Fair, Numero, and has been in a number of New York fashion ads. Despite inheriting her mother's artistic spirit and fierce independence, she did not pursue a career in filmmaking. A mother's words of wisdom: "She is my soulmate, the reason I never get lost in such a noisy world." Diane Lane, in contrast to many of her colleagues, has never sought to artificially prolong her young through cosmetic procedures. To her, aging is a blessing. She said that being an old person is a privilege. Age is just a series of wrinkles. These comments strike a chord of dignity in a field that values youth and flawlessness. Diane Lane's net worth is around $40 million, thanks to her successful career spanning over 40 years, wise investments, and good money management. Diane Lane has a number of possessions, one of which being a $3 million mansion in Los Angeles. After a long day at the office, she wants to unwind in the traditional Hollywood style of the 364.5 FV2 house, which is 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. This home is an expression of tasteful design and an oasis where one may concentrate on both their professional and personal lives. Diane Lane has dabbled in painting as well as real estate. She has a track record of selling oil paintings for $100 to $500 with a focus on landscapes. This gives her an outlet outside of acting and shows how adaptable she is. She also has a profound love for art, a complete, rich life formed through effort, talent, and a perceptive financial perspective is reflected in Diane Lane's riches, which comes from acting, investments, real estate, and art. Also shown here is a Diane Lane who has achieved great success while maintaining a healthy equilibrium between her professional and personal lives. Hollywood glitz and quiet pains that few can fathom come together in Diane Lane's life to form a dramatic tragedy. Diane has persevered through a troubled upbringing, tumultuous relationships, a broken marriage, rumors, and unofficial scandals with grace and dignity. That even the most beloved among us can feel invisible agony is what she exemplifies. Does Diane Lane appeal to you? Even though her life has been tragic, can you not sense the beauty and quiet strength within her? If you're interested in learning more about the lives and careers of other Hollywood stars, including hers, and find her narrative intriguing, then you should subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Your presence and attention are greatly appreciated.